Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to another review. And this particular review I'm about to look at is for a film that I think has had a lot of buzz, and there's a lot of eyes on it, and a lot of people have got a lot of high hopes that this film is going to, quite frankly, bring some freshness, bring some fresh blood into a much loved genre that, quite frankly, over the last few years has started to just become, stale. And hopefully this is the movie that is going to achieve that, because I went into this particular movie not knowing what to expect. I kind of had me guard down, hoping, not to, get too excited, get too hyped for it. And when I left the theatre after seeing this particular movie, I can honestly tell you I was pleasantly surprised. And so let's talk about it. We're here to talk about Primitive War. So Primitive War, let's get cracking. Primitive War is a 2025 Australian science fiction action horror film directed by Luke Sparke and based on the 2017 novel of the same name by Ethan Pettus, who both co-wrote the script for the film, starring Ryan Kwanten, Tricia Helfer, Nick Wechsler, and Jeremy Piven. The film is set in a Vietnam jungle valley during 1968 and follows a reconnaissance unit who carries out a rescue mission for a US Armed Special Forces platoon and are attacked by de-extinct dinosaurs. So the dinosaur genre is nothing new. It's been going way back from the 1950s. We've got classic dinosaur movies of that era. But I think everyone that knows dinosaur movies and knows the genre, the go-to movie is, of course, probably always going to be Jurassic Park. And when that particular movie dropped, I was a young kid and I remember the buzz around that movie. And I remember going into that movie, it was an action adventure movie. It had elements of horror. It was like a thriller. I was on the edge of my seat. It literally scared you. It had everything that you wanted. And that's why it's a classic to this day. And as the series has progressed and we're now in the Jurassic World era, I feel as if what made those movies so entertaining and so good is being lost, because those movies established the dinosaurs, for example, as real legitimate reanimated cloned creatures that acted like animals, they behaved like animals, they were treated like these real larger than life creatures, animals in their habitats. When they broke out of the paddock, the T-Rex, I always remember that scene and was absolutely terrified. I literally was, scared for my life. The raptor sequences. And in the later movies, they've kind of went away from trying to make these animals look intimidating and scary and focused on making them more or less heroes. So, for example, the T-Rex, which has been established as Rexy in the fan base, she became a hero at the end of Jurassic World. Then you've got Blue, the raptor, who essentially is its own heroic character. And for me, as much as that's fun, it kind of takes away the elements of what I enjoyed from the first movies, where the unpredictability of these creatures and the unpredictability of what was going to happen to the human protagonist or even villains while running around trying to escape these larger than life creatures and animals, the dinosaurs themselves. But the great thing about Primitive War is the setting, and they basically establish all of the things that I really enjoyed about the original Jurassic Park. So like you say, it's set in 1968. You have, Jeremy Piven's character, who was Colonel Jericho. His platoon of soldiers entered this valley and disappeared. This unknown valley in the Vietnam jungle. They went there on a reconnaissance mission and didn't return. So then he hires this platoon of soldiers known as the Vultures to basically go deep into this valley to establish the whereabouts or what happened to these soldiers that went missing. And the great thing I will say about this particular film is the cast themselves are all well fitted for the roles that they are, assigned to. Like Ryan Kwanten, his character, who is Sergeant First Class Ryan Baker, he was a real great lead actor. I actually believed in his character. All he wanted to do was protect these men, protect his platoon of vulture soldiers, and basically get them out alive from a situation that they get put into that even they could not imagine would turn the way it did. You then have, of course, with them, you have the character of Sophia Wagner, who was played by Tricia Helfer. She basically is a Russian paleontologist who plays quite a keen part throughout the plot of this movie. So as the soldiers venture into this unknown valley, they get there. It's, as you can imagine, the setup for this movie is established that this is a war film. It feels eerie, it feels intense, it feels, grounded, gritty. It seems very serious from the get-go. And that's the elements I enjoyed about this particular film, is that they basically tried to set this up as a traditional war movie by introducing you to the start of this movie, the essential cast members, each of the different characters' backstories. Each character has a unique element to them. It reminds me very much of when you are introduced to the characters in Kong Skull Island, in the characters in the Predator movie, where you establish each character and each personality among the soldiers themselves. Once they are then placed into this unknown valley, all hell breaks loose. All hell breaks loose, and it's like a fight for survival between these soldiers and the animals that are presiding inside the valley. So unlike Jurassic Park, in this particular movie, you are introduced to the Pyroraptors. Now, there is a Pyroraptor that I believe made an appearance in Jurassic World Dominion. It's the one with the feathers on that was, chasing Owen across the ice. These are bigger than a raptor. Bigger than a what they call Velociraptor. They are actually the raptors that you actually would probably face, and be scared of the most, because I believe a Velociraptor is probably the size of a chicken. So the great thing about this movie, because paleontology has moved on so long, they basically showcase like how far paleontology has come along, new elements of like what established dinosaurs that we know of, they now basically have added to them in this particular film. And so, like you say, you've got the squadron of soldiers that are trying to get from one end of the valley to the other and survive it. And you've got all these things coming at them from all different sides, from the jungle side to the river side to the mountainous side. There's dinosaurs everywhere. And in the middle, you've got this Russian paleontologist who has a backstory that links to why these dinosaurs have become, de-extinct and now living in the valley. And the first half of this movie, like I say, it establishes itself as a very serious action war movie. But as the plot progresses, it then gets more, action adventurous, and then it gets more science fiction. You then discover that, how these dinosaurs came to be. You're then, introduced to the human villains of the story, which is this Russian general who has got scientists and paleontologists and his own group of soldiers that are hunting the American soldiers down. So all of this is quickly established within the course of the movie. And for me personally, it was a fun ride. I like how it goes from the serious to the science fiction to the action adventure element of the movie. The dinosaurs in this movie, like I said, the one thing that made the Jurassic Park franchise in the beginning so epic and exciting is how realistic the dinosaurs were and how they established them as real animals and creatures living in the world. And they were so unpredictable how they would react, how they would interact with you, how would they come and try and kill you, would they come and sniff you, and then walk away. That's what made the movie so good, because it felt realistic. Yes, it's science fiction. Yes, it's fictional. But there was those elements of realisticness of them. There was element of establishing these creatures as real creatures and elements. And the great thing about Primitive War, they achieve that. They basically bring that back and bring back the element of the unpredictability of these animals and these creatures and these dinosaurs. They're just as scary, they're just as intimidating, they're just as unpredictable as they were in the original Jurassic Park, and I would say the Lost World Jurassic Park as well. Now, some of the dinosaurs in this movie are amazing. So, for example, here is the good old Tyrannosaurus Rex. So as you can see, the Tyrannosaurus Rex within the course of Primitive War is slightly different to the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the Jurassic Park franchise. The element of this Tyrannosaurus Rex is it does have fur along the back of its head and its neck. And they basically showcase that, the advancements in, the knowledge that they've discovered within the confines of these creatures, which I think's fantastic that they were able to update the looks and the feels of these particular dinosaurs throughout the course of this movie. And when it comes to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, I mentioned earlier how they basically, in the Jurassic World franchise, made the dinosaurs more like heroes than animals. In this particular story, the T-Rex does have an established plot. Basically, there's more than one T-Rex. There is a buck and a doe T-Rex, and they have chicks with them. And when this group of soldiers enter into the jungle area, they basically enter into their territory. And there's a nest there with the chicks in. So, of course, being a parent animal, it's protecting its nest, it's protecting its territory. And you see the pure viciousness and the fierceness from the Tyrannosaurus Rex at full pelt. Really does not hesitate to go after these soldiers to protect its family, to protect its nest. And the sequences with the dinosaurs are really well done and established. And the elements with the soldiers, as I've said, are brilliant. How they were established very much at the beginning in this more serious tone war type movie. You've got General Keyes, you've got you've got General Keyes, you've got Logan Storhall, Leon Verne, Charlie Miller, and Sergeant Xavier Wise are the other soldiers among this team. And there is one element that really surprised me when it came to the plot of this movie. If you have a male character that, accidentally killed a family, and you see the consequences of what he's going through mentally throughout the course of the movie. You have another character that clearly has mental issues because of what he's seen and experienced within the Vietnam War, and he starts to envision things, and he talks out loud of things that's there that isn't there. And so because they add these elements, it does give you that seriousness of what life in war and after war with PTSD is probably like. And there's this one particular element with the character who talks to himself and is clearly having mental issues, where he's on this boat and he's got his gun and he's just shooting out at the water, talking to himself. And the sergeant first class Ryan Baker, who's played by Ryan Kwanten, he basically has to calm him down and say, listen, everything's going to be okay. Calm down. Come back to it. And for me, that was a really important moment in the movie, because it really established, the element, like I say, the mental health element of war and PTSD and trauma that people go through during that time. All of that within the confines of this science fiction action horror film. And we need to talk about the horror, because the horror in this movie is fantastic. This particular character or creature, we've seen these big birds in the Jurassic World franchise. It's the biggest prehistoric flying dinosaur. Now, the great thing about this dinosaur that we didn't see in Jurassic World Rebirth or the previous film, it has this long, inundated tongue. And there's a sequence with a human character where this dinosaur uses its tongue in such a unique way. And when you see the aftermath of what happened to the human, I was like, oh my God, this is cool. This is scary. I've never seen anything like this, or could have predicted anything like this in a dinosaur movie. But they did it with this particular film and with this particular scene, with this particular character. It's well worth the wait and well worth the watch. Like you say, you've got other elements with other dinosaurs, those little fucking horrible things that run around. There's 20,000 of them chasing people around the jungle. Quite intimidating. Then you have beautiful shots that, quite frankly, they do a shot in this movie that is definitely trying to be like a representation or a replica moment of, the Brontosaurus, when you're first introduced to that in Jurassic Park, when it lifts its hind legs up and pulls, at the tree, and then Alan Grant looks out at the riverside and he just sees all of the dinosaurs grazing out in the wilderness. That basically redo that scene within the confines of this Vietnam setting. And I think it works really well. They even tried to do it again in Jurassic World Rebirth, but it just didn't have the same impact, where I feel as it does in this particular movie, because I think they did it without even trying to make it a moment. But when you see the dinosaurs out there at the riverside and you see the different type of dinosaurs, I was like, wow, this is a beautiful shot. It's really well filmed and screened. Like I say, it does things that Jurassic Park did that now are missing in the newer Jurassic Park or World movies. And then it also brings back the scares, the intenseness, within the nitty-gritty confines of a Vietnam War film. And that's what makes this film great. Great acting, great cinematography, great horror moments. There's elements of the action and the horror that really stand out. The cast is well placed throughout the course of this movie. Like I say, it establishes itself as a serious war movie in the beginning. Then it moves into action adventure. Then it moves into horror. Then it moves into science fiction. And the last half of this movie is just bonkers. The last half of this movie is just crazy. You have the two T-Rexes are featured in the final part of this movie. You have raptors featured in the last part of this movie. You have them flying dinosaurs in this last half of the movie. There's everything just comes at these soldiers all at the same time as when they discover the reasoning and why these dinosaurs have been de-extinct and brought back, and who's behind it, which is this, I've mentioned the Russians are involved in this plot. And the last half hour of this movie just goes from 0 to 10. And it doesn't let up and it doesn't disappoint. And that's what makes this movie fun. It's a wartime movie that features everything that makes a good science fiction movie as well, an action adventure movie, an element of horror. Now, if I've got any negatives, I would say it's the budget restraints. Like I said at the beginning, this is not Universal. It doesn't have a 150 million budget, but I generally believe the director of this movie did everything he could with the budget provided. But there are certain shots where you can tell the CGI could be retweaked, or the CGI just doesn't work well in the way I think the director would have hoped it would have done. There are editing issues, I feel, and I think, there could be elements of reshooting of being done, or there could have been elements where, because of the budget restraints, they might have had to clip certain scenes, because there are certain scenes where something's happening and then it'll jump to something else and then it'll jump back, and I feel as if there's something in between missing. I feel as if there's elements of it that's missing, or they've had to cut certain elements to just stick within the budget in the frame that they're given. But that's probably my only negative. I accept it's an independent movie. I accept it's lower budget. I accept it doesn't have the promotional machine of Universal behind it. But what you get is somebody, a director, a creator who's done a movie out of passion, done a movie out of, love for the genre, and out of just wanting to create something different, something unique, something fresh from the dinosaur genre that also reestablishes things that's been long missing in previous Jurassic Park films. And he's achieved it for me. He's achieved it. And I would gladly watch Primitive War again. It's a fun movie. It's a war movie with, to start off as a serious war movie that turns into an action adventure horror film with a sci-fi element right at the end that is bonkers but fun, and you cannot help but keep your eyes on the screen to watch it. So yes, I think the director, the actors, the cinematography, everything's worked well for the budget that they had. And I do think it's a fresh take on dinosaur films. I do think it's a fresh take on the whole, science fiction action genre. And we need something fresh. We need something different. We're bored of the big budget superhero movies. We're bored of the big budget, reboots and sequels. This is unique, different and fresh, and it's just a fun film. And if you can go into this basically not with any high expectations, but just going in knowing what it is, it's a lower budget independent movie. It's a war movie with elements of action, adventure, horror, and science fiction. You should be satisfied. So for me, if I am going to rate Primitive War, I'm going to rate it an 8 out of 10 because I really enjoyed it for what it was. And despite me negatives of, might be editing issues or budgetary restraint, it's a fun movie. And it delivered something different and unique to a much-loved genre that needed some freshness, some fresh blood. And that's what it's delivered. So if you've seen Primitive War, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Would you like a sequel? Because the way the film ends, there's definitely room for one more. So that's just my opinion of Primitive War. Keep on enjoying your movies. Keep on enjoying all things entertainment. And I'll catch you all at the next one.